Bob hears the rumors about that old stone drainage tunnel in Clifton, but being the skeptic he is, he debunks all of the fables surrounding it. His friend Helen is quite the opposite. She is bound to believe any bizarre conspiracy theory she hears, no matter how absurd it seems. Helen is certain that at the end of the tunnel there is a direct portal to hell, and a spirit known as Red-Eye Mike lurks around the tunnel, guarding it from any valiant soul willing to enter. He has eyes like blood and skin like a sheet of ice, pale, wan, and brittle. Bob, a cynic, of course, believes Smith is malarkey and even humorous to someone of his intellectual status. The ongoing contention between the two unlikely friends has sparked the idea to visit the gates of hell and finally extinguish the fire that is this trivial debate. The day they decide to set out on their journey to Clifton is one with very heavy rainfall, so when they are inside, the usual trickle of water is now a raging torrent pounding against the top of the weathered tunnel. Bob has done his research on this seemingly run-of-the-mill drainage tunnel. It was built as a drain for a stream called Weaselbrook, but due to its ominous presence, many speculations have arose. Helen, on the other hand, is relying solely on word of mouth. As the bear travels deeper into the tunnel, the banter is kept to a minimum. Though no spirits have appeared, graffiti adorns the red brick walls, messages hailing Satan, praising the works of the Ku Klux Klan, and warning passerbyers to turn back are revealed with every movement of Bob and Helen's flashlights. It is immensely dark. It is the kind of darkness that swallows any outside light like a blanket, and you cannot see something in, even if it was inches away from your face. Suddenly, Helen's flashlight focuses on very disturbing decor. This particular area has dead trees planted in planters exactly 3 feet away from one another, with dead cats and birds tethered to their trunks. Bob dismisses it as a prank, some lunatic trying to further the conspiracy theories and confusion. Helen is not too sure, for she feels as if something very unfortunate is going to happen. A cold shudder trickles down her spine and uncertainty plagues her mind. Glancing around nervously in the pitch blackness, she shines her light on Bob, who has started walking again. She reluctantly follows him. The air is pregnant with silence, and the sound of rain is gone. They decide the tempest has ended. Cold, hesitant beams of light penetrate the darkness, revealing a bit of the tunnel every time they move. The eerie silence seems as if it is screaming for them to turn back, but instead they persevere. Helen swallows a nervous whimper that is barely audible. Out of the blue, shadows swirl around their feet, and their flashlights flicker off. In a burst of panic, the two frantically press the switch on and off, but their only light source is gone. Fear settles in like a dense fog, and deep down they know they are not alone. Something brushes against Bob's back, so he turns. He is met with the overwhelming darkness and nothing else. A gust of unexplainable wind sweeps by and howls, and to their panicked minds it seems like laughter. A low, breathy chuckle interrupts Helen and Bob's thought processes, pulling them out of their fright-induced trances. The two are met with a pair of glowing, blood-red eyes and translucent, pasty white skin that can only belong to Red-Eye Mike. They scream, but their vocalizations are lost in the darkness. An almost animated swirl of hues of purple appear behind the terrifying phantom. The portal gives an unfriendly welcome to the trespassers. Red-Eyed Mike's bony, trembling hand grips Bob's shoulder like a vice, dragging him in. The spirit flings him into the portal as if he were a rag doll. Bob is being drawn in, drowning in slumbering evil, and now there is no escape for him. Red-Eyed Mike's menacing, glowing eyes meet Helen's traumatized ones. Instinctively, she runs towards the entrance. Her feet hitting the ground is in time with the pitter-patter of the drizzle outside. After what feels like days, she reaches the end of the treacherous tunnel. She jumps up and down, her feet sloshing against the wet pavement. Her victory is short-lived, for she remembers her friend Bob. Big, fat tears pour out of her eyes, and guilt and grief sit on her chest like a weight. To this day, Helen will not talk about the occurrences in the Clifton Tunnel, but she continues to mourn the devastating and premature death of Bob. All she can imagine when she thinks of him is his fate, spending an eternity in the fiery inferno. His disappearance rocked their New Jersey town, for everyone loved Bob. When asked about his vanishment, Helen is quick to dismiss the verbalizer. The horror story is yet another inexplicable tale tied to the tunnel in Clifton, New Jersey, the gates of hell.